The ring had been sold in July 3 months before she arrived at the Reardon spread, and she had known it was gone when she packed to leave her father's house, but had not known where it had gone, because the selling had been done by her brother and her father, together while she was at the Dunmore market. And when she came home, the ring was not on the shelf where she kept it, and her brother had said only that it had been necessary, and she had understood necessary to mean that the situation had been worse than she had known, and she had not pressed further because the pressing would have made the situation worse without making the ring return. And the ring was gone, and the pressing was not going to bring it back, and she had learned in the 14 months since Thomas died that there were things that were gone and would not come back, and the useful response to those things was not to pursue them, but to account for them and carry the account forward. She had done that with the ring. She had noted its absence in the ledger she kept in her own mind, the ledger of what she had, and what she did not have, and what she could do with what she had. And she had moved forward. And the moving forward had brought her to the exchange in September, and to the Reardon spread in October, and to a Thursday morning in November, when something shifted in a coat pocket on a hook by the door. And the shifting had produced a thought she had put aside for 2 days, and the putting aside was the accounting of a person who moved at the right pace. Her name was Culla Fenn, and she was 32, and she had been a widow for 14 months, since her husband Thomas had died in the spring of the year before. And the 14 months had been the 14 months they had been. The first 6 spent in the specific work of grief, and the next 8 spent in the specific work of determining what came next. The determining was what she was good at, which was to say, she had always been good at it, and the grief had not taken the goodness from her, only delayed the application of it, and when the delay was over, she had determined correctly. She had what she had, she could do what she could do. And the doing was the household management position at the Reardon spread, and she had arrived in October with the ring absent from her left hand, and the record incomplete, and he had bought the ring on a Tuesday in July, at the Dunmore trading post, which was where he went on the 3rd Tuesday of every month for the operational supply run. The supply run had a fixed list, hay grades and feed quantities, and the specific hardware items that a working spread required in regular rotation, and he had been working through the list at the trading post counter when the younger man had come in. The younger man was perhaps 22 or 23, with the look of someone who had dressed carefully for an errand he had not wanted to do, and he had brought the ring out of his coat pocket with the specific quality of motion of a person handling something they wished they did not have to handle, and he had placed it on the counter and named a price. And the trading post owner had looked at it and said he could offer $38, and the younger man had said that would do, and had taken the money and had left quickly in the way of a person who needed to be done with the thing. Gant had been standing at the counter finishing the supply list, and he had watched all of it in the peripheral way that a person watched something happening nearby. And when the younger man left, he had looked at the ring in the case, and the trading post owner had said it was a plain gold band, good quality, available at 50 Bay 2 say. And Gant had looked at it for a moment, and had paid $50 for it, and had put it in his coat pocket, and had gone back to the supply list. He had not had a specific plan for the ring when he bought it. He had bought it because buying a plain gold wedding band at the Dunmore trading post on a Tuesday in July for $50 was the kind of thing a person did when the ring was there, and the $50 was available, and something in the ring's being at the trading post felt wrong in a way that $50 could address. He was not a man who analyzed this kind of impulse at length. He put the ring in his coat pocket and went back to the supply run. He had it still in his coat pocket when Culla Fenn arrived at the Reardon spread in October. The 8 months of determining had not been wasted. She had come out of them with a clear account of what she had and what she could do with what she had, which was the bookkeeping approach to a situation that was not a ledger, but behaved like one if you looked at it correctly. What she had was 8 years of experience, running a household and a small holding, which had given her knowledge of kitchens and supply and accounts and the specific management of operations that were too small to hire specialists and too large to ignore. She had competence in the practical things, the mending of supply chains, the identification of waste, the organization of systems that had grown without design. And competence in the practical things was what a household management position required, and the exchange had a position, and she had taken it. What she did not have was the ring. The ring had been sold in July, while she was still at her father's house, in the period between the grief work and the determining, and its absence was one of the things she had put in the ledger of what she did not have and could not address and would need to carry forward without. She had not expected to miss the ring as much as she did. She had not been wearing it. She had taken it off in the second month after Thomas died, when wearing it had begun to feel like a claim she was no longer certain she was making, and she had kept it on the shelf in her room at her father's house because the shelf was where she put things that mattered and were not currently in use. And the ring had been both of those things. When it was gone, she had understood that she had been keeping it not as a claim, but as a record, and the record had been sold for what her brother had said was $40, and $40 was what the situation had required. And she had packed without it and had not said anything about the not having, because the not having was her own matter, and the alternatives were worse. His name was Gant Reardon, and he was 38, and he had been running the South Callaway spread for 11 years and had been doing it alone for 3. And the 3 years had produced a specific kind of quiet in the house that was not uncomfortable, but was the quiet of a place where only one person moved through the rooms. And one person's movement through rooms produced less sound and less warmth and less presence than two people's movement. And the difference was not something he thought about directly, but was something he was aware of in the way that a rancher was aware of. A change in the weather, not with analysis, but with the body. He had gone to the exchange in October because the house needed managing and the supply contracts needed reviewing, and those were practical requirements. And he was a practical man who addressed practical requirements. And Califen had arrived in October with a bag that was practical and a quality of attention that was the quality of a person who had been managing things alone for long enough that the managing was now simply how she moved through the world, automatically and with the assessment already running before she had made any conscious decision to assess. She looked at the kitchen, and she looked at the supply room, and she looked at the accounts desk, and she asked 2 questions, which were, what was the most pressing condition, and what had been deferred the longest. He told her the most pressing was the kitchen reorganization, which had been running on a system designed for a larger household and had not been adjusted for a household of 1. And the deferred was the supply contract review, which was 3 seasons overdue. She said she would address the kitchen first and the contract second. He said that sounded right. She began. The kitchen was reorganized. In a week, the supply contracts were reviewed over the following 2 weeks, and she found a pattern of over-ordering in 3 categories that had been running for 2 years and had been costing the operation approximately $90 annually. She found it the way she found things, which was by laying the records side by side and reading them the way she had been taught to read accounts when she was 17. Not one document at a time, but all the documents together, because the mistake was never in any single document, but in the relationship between documents. And the relationship between these documents showed that the hay order was being calculated against the previous winter's herd count rather than the current one, and the difference compounded over 3 seasons. She documented the finding and showed him the documentation, and he read it in the way he read things, which was once and carefully and with questions at the end rather than during. And the questions were the right questions, and she answered them, and he said it was good work. And she said she would renegotiate the contracts in November, and she did. And the renegotiation saved the spread, $83 in the first year, and would save similar amounts going forward. And she noted the finding and the outcome in the household records, as she noted everything, precisely, and in the format that made it legible to whoever came after her. Because legible records were the things she cared most about in her work, which was that the work should survive her. He noticed her hands when she worked. He noticed that the right hand had this slight callous pattern of a woman who had been doing physical household work for years, and that the left hand was bare, in the specific way of a hand that had been wearing something and was not currently wearing it. And the ring finger had the faint line of a ring worn for a long time and removed not long ago. He had the ring in his coat pocket. He did not say anything about it. He thought about it in the evenings, in the way he thought about things that were present and had no obvious right action. Not with urgency, but with the specific attention of a man who was waiting for the right way to do something that needed to be done correctly. The ring was hers, and she should have it, and he knew both of those things. And the question was the sequence, and the sequence was the thing he did not yet have. She had been at the spread for 3 weeks when she noticed the coat on the hook by the door. And add. She had noticed the coat before. It was the coat he wore on the morning property checks. Heavy canvas with 2 deep pockets, hung on the same hook every morning when he came in. But she had not noticed what was in the coat before, or she had noticed it in the abstract way of a person who was registering that something was present without examining what the something was. She noticed it more specifically on a Thursday morning when he came in from the morning check and hung the coat, and something in the pocket shifted with the specific weight of a small metal object, and she looked at the coat, and she looked at the pocket, and she had a thought that she put aside immediately and went to make breakfast. The thought did not stay put aside. It came back that evening when she was at the accounts desk, and it was the kind of thought that was inconvenient and specific and would not be managed into a different position. And she recognized that quality in a thought and knew what it meant, which was that she was going to have to address it, and addressing it meant asking. And asking meant saying the thing directly and letting whatever came of the saying come. She gave herself 2 more days, because 2 days was the right amount of time to let a thought settle before addressing it. Not long enough for the not addressing to become avoidance, and not short enough to be reacting rather than responding. On the 3rd day she said she had a question. He said he was listening. She said she had noticed something in the pocket of his coat, and she was asking if it was something she should know about, which was a question she would not normally ask, and was asking, because the noticing had been specific, in a way that the not asking was beginning to be a presence of its own. He was quiet for a long moment. He reached into his coat, and he took out the ring, and he put it on the table between them. She looked at it. She picked it up with the specific care of a person touching something they had handled many times before and had not expected to handle again. She turned it in the light the way she had turned it many times before in the years she had been keeping it on the shelf, and the turning confirmed what she had already known when she first saw it on the table, which was that it was hers. The small mark on the inside of the band was Thomas's initial, T, which the jeweler had put there at their wedding, at her request, because she had wanted a record inside the ring as well as outside it, and the mark was there, and the ring was hers, and the ring had been in his coat pocket since July. This is Dusty Vows, where the most careful thing he ever did was the thing he almost didn't say. A ring in a coat pocket. 5 months of waiting for the right words. If you want the next story the moment it lands, subscribe now. Then, back to the spread. She set it down on the table. She looked at him. She said, where had he found this? He said the Dunmore Trading Post. He said July. She said July. He said yes. She said that was before she had come to the spread. He said yes. She said had not known it was hers when he bought it. He said no. He said he had not known anything about it. He said he had bought it because it was there, and the buying had seemed like the right thing to do. She said, and then she had arrived. He said yes. He said he had understood what it was when she arrived. He said he had seen her hands in the first week, and he had understood, and then he had not known what to do with that understanding. And the not knowing had extended from the first week through the 5 weeks since, and he was aware that was a long time to be not knowing. She said, why had he not told her? He was quiet for a long moment. He said he had thought about how to tell her many times in 5 weeks and had not found a way that did not make the buying into something it had not been, which was a gesture directed at her, and it had not been directed at her because he had not known her when he did it. He said he had bought it because a wedding ring at a trading post on a Tuesday felt wrong to him, and $50 felt like the correct response to a thing that felt wrong, and that was the whole of the reason, and he had not wanted to present it to her in a way that claimed more than that. She was quiet for a long time. She said he had bought her ring back without knowing. It was hers and had been carrying it in his coat pocket for 5 weeks after she arrived. He said yes. She said he had seen her hands in the first week and known. He said yes. She said and had said nothing. He said yes. She said why? He said because saying something would have changed what it was. He said the ring was a ring he had bought at a trading post in July, and it was hers, and she should have it, and saying something before he knew how to say it, without it becoming something else, had felt like the wrong sequence. He said the buying had been one thing, and the telling was another thing, and both of them needed to stay what they were and not collapse into each other. And he had not found the way to keep them separate until she had asked, and the asking had been the right sequence. She said 5 weeks was a long time to be finding the right sequence. He said yes. He said he was aware of that. She said did he know she had been noticing the coat for 2 weeks? He said he had not known. He said he had thought the noticing had been on Thursday. She said the noticing had started before Thursday. She said she had put it aside and waited 2 days and asked which was her own version of finding the right sequence. He said that was a long time for her to wait too. She said 2 days was the right amount of time for her. She said 5 weeks might be the right amount of time for him, and she was not criticizing the 5 weeks. He said he appreciated that. She looked at the ring in her hand. She said she had been looking for a way to get it back. She said she had asked her brother, and her brother had said he did not know where it had gone, which she had understood to mean he did not want to say, and she had not pressed, because pressing would have required her brother to say things that would have been hard for him to say. And she had decided. The ring was gone and had been trying to determine what it meant for the record she had been keeping to be incomplete. He said he was glad she had it back. She said she had a question. He said he was listening. She said, what had he planned to do with it if she had not arrived at the spread? He said he had not had a plan. He said he had put it in his coat pocket in July, and it had been in his coat pocket since, and he had not been planning forward from that point. He said some things did not require a plan at the moment they were done. And she said he had been carrying a stranger's wedding ring in his coat pocket for 3 months before she arrived, and for 5 weeks after. He said yes. He said, when she put it that way, it sounded unusual. She said it was unusual. He said he knew. She said it was also the most careful thing anyone had done for her in a long time, and she wanted him to know that she understood the difference between the buying and the telling. And she understood why he had not told her, and she thought he had been right to find the right sequence, even when the sequence took 5 weeks. Tell me, when she said it was the most careful thing anyone had done for her in a long time, did you hear both parts of that sentence? Not just that it was careful, that it had been a long time. Leave your answer. I read every one. Now, back to the spread. She said, Gan. Her name for him, said the first time with the full weight of it, said the way a name sounded when it had been the name of the man at the Dunmore trading post in July, who had put $50 on the counter for a stranger's ring, and put it in his coat pocket, and said nothing about it for 5 months. He waited. I'm not going anywhere. She said it the way she said things she had decided, which was plainly and as a fact rather than a performance. She held his gaze, and she held the ring in her other hand, her left hand, the hand that had been bare for 14 months. You bought this back before you knew me, and you carried it until you found a way to give it back that didn't make it into something it wasn't. And those two things together are the most accurate account of a person's character I have encountered, and I am not going anywhere. As if it were the simplest arithmetic in the world. Gant Reardon. Her name for him, said the way a name sounded when it had been the name of the man who had noticed her hands in the first week, and had known and had waited until he understood what the waiting was for, and had then come to the table with the ring in the right sequence. He said, Calla. Her name, the second time with the weight of the name of the woman who had noticed the coat pocket 2 weeks before Thursday, and had waited 2 days, and had asked the right question, and was now sitting across the table with the ring in her left hand. She waited. He said the accounts were good. He said the kitchen was better than it had been. He said the contracts were renegotiated correctly and would save the spread money for the foreseeable future. He said all of this because he was a man who said the practical thing when the practical thing was true, and all of it was true, and it was also not the thing he was saying. And she knew it was not the thing he was saying. And he knew she knew. He said the other thing was that the ring was hers and she should keep it, and he was glad it was back where it belonged, and the back where it belonged was the South Callaway, spread in November with Califan across the table. And that was also true, and he was also saying that. She looked at him. She said she understood that. He said he thought she did. She said she was going to put the ring on the shelf in her room, which was where she had kept it before, and it was going to stay on the shelf until she understood what she wanted to do with it, and the understanding might take a while, and the while was going to be here. He said the while being here was fine. She said she knew. He nodded once. The matter was settled. The kitchen was organized, and the supply contracts were renegotiated, and the ring was in her hand, and Calafen was at the South Callaway spread, and she was not going anywhere. She had lost the ring in July, and it had come back to her in November by way of a man who had bought it at a trading post for reasons he had not fully understood, and had carried it for 5 months, and had found, at the end of the 5 months, that the ring and the woman and the reasons had all arrived at the same place, and the same place was here. And the ring was in her hand, and she was not going anywhere. The spread was outside, and November was doing what November did, and inside the kitchen was warm, and the supply contracts were renegotiated, and the ring was in her left hand, and Calafen was across from Gant Reardon, and neither of them was going anywhere. She had been a widow for 14 months, and she had lost the ring at the end of the first year, and the ring had traveled from a shelf in her father's house to a trading post in Dunmore, to a coat pocket in July, to a table in November, and the table was the right place for it, and November was the right time, and neither of them was going anywhere. She put the ring on the table between them. She did not put it on. The ring was hers, and she was keeping it, and she was not yet ready to decide what it meant to be keeping it again, and the not yet was fine, and he understood the not yet without being told, which was one of the things she had been noting about him since the first week, and the noting had accumulated into something, and the something was here, and neither of them was going anywhere. The spread had been running on its own quiet for 3 years, and it was not running on its own quiet now, and the difference was a person who asked 2 questions on the first day and reorganized the kitchen in a week and found the contract error in 2 and waited 2 days before asking about the coat pocket, and the spread was better for the difference. And Gant Reardon was better for the difference, and neither of them was going anywhere. She had packed to come to the South Callaway Range in October, with the specific, careful packing of a woman who had determined what came next and had come to the spread with the ring, absent from her left hand, and with the record it represented incomplete, and November had completed the record, and not in the way she had expected, not by finding the ring through her own efforts, but by the specific way that things sometimes completed themselves, which was by an act done at a trading post in July, by a man who had not known it was an act, and the not knowing had been the most important part, because a thing done without knowing you are doing it for someone is the purest kind of doing. And the ring in her hand was the evidence of the purest kind, and she was keeping it, and she was not going anywhere. The kitchen was going to be organized in December and in January and in all the months after January, and the supply contracts were going to be renegotiated at the correct intervals, and the accounts were going to be kept legibly so that they survived the keeper, and the keeper was going to be at the South Callaway spread for all of that, and the spread was going to be there too, and neither of them was going anywhere, and the ring was on the table, and then it was going to be on the shelf in her room, and the shelf was where she put things that mattered and were not currently in use, and the ring mattered, and the use of it was going to be determined in the while that was going to be here. And the here was the South Callaway spread, and both of them were staying, and the matter was settled. The record that had been incomplete in October was complete now, and the completeness was not the shape she had expected the completeness to take. She had not expected it to take the shape of a coat pocket and a trading post, and a man who had waited 5 weeks for the right sequence. But the shape was the shape it was, and the shape was correct, and the ring was in her hand, and she was not putting it on yet, and she was not going anywhere, and Gant Reardon was not going anywhere, and the matter was settled, and November was outside, and the kitchen was warm, and both of them were staying, and it was enough. She had come to the South Callaway Range in October with a bag that was practical, and a quality of attention that was the quality of a woman who had been managing things alone for 8 years and 14 months, and who knew the difference between what she had and what she did not have. And what she had in October was the skills and the 32 years and the specific quality of attention, and what she did not have was the ring, and November had changed that, and the changing had come from a direction she had not been watching, which was the coat on the hook by the door, and the coat on the hook had been there since October. and she had started watching it 2 weeks ago, and the watching had produced Thursday, and Thursday had produced the question, and the question had produced the ring, and the ring was in her hand, and it was hers, and she was keeping it. Gad Reardon had bought a stranger's ring at a trading post in July for $50 and had put it in his coat pocket and had gone back to the supply run and had come home and had not thought further about it, and 3 months later the stranger had arrived at his spread in October with a bag that was practical and the ring absent from her left hand. And he had understood in the first week and had waited 5 weeks for the right sequence. And the right sequence had been her question, and the question had produced the table. And the table was where the ring was now, and the ring was hers. And she was not going anywhere, and neither was he. And the South Callaway spread was outside, and November was doing what November did. And the kitchen was warm, and neither of them was going anywhere. And the record was complete, and the ring was on the table between them, and both of them were staying. And the matter was settled, and it was enough. And both of them were staying. She had been noting things about him since the first week, and the noting had accumulated into something that November had named, and the something was here, and the ring was on the table, and she was keeping it. And the shelf in her room was where it was going to go, and the shelf was where she put things that mattered and were not currently in use. And the ring mattered, and its use was going to be determined in the while that was going to be here. And the here was the South Callaway spread, and neither of them was going anywhere. And the accounts were on the desk, and the kitchen was organized, and the contracts were renegotiated, and November was outside, and both of them were at the table. And both of them were staying, and the matter was settled, and the ring was hers, and she was not going anywhere, and neither was he, and the matter was completely and entirely settled, and both of them were staying. The ring had been on a shelf in her father's house and had gone to a trading post in Dunmore and had gone from the trading post to a coat pocket on the 3rd Tuesday of July and had stayed in the coat pocket through August and September and October and into November. Through the supply runs and the morning property checks and the kitchen reorganization and the supply contract renegotiation and the 2 weeks of noticing and the 2 days of waiting and the Thursday question, and all of that was the journey the ring had made to get back to her hand, and the journey was not the journey she would have designed, and the journey was not the journey she would have expected, and the journey was the journey it had been, and it had ended correctly, and the ring was in her hand, and she was keeping it, and the shelf was where it was going to go, and the shelf was where she put things that mattered and were not currently in use. And currently, the ring mattered in a way she was still determining, and the determining was going to happen here. And here was the South Callaway spread in November, and neither of them was going anywhere, and the ring was hers. And the matter was settled, and both of them were staying, and it was enough. The South Callaway spread in November was where both of them were, and neither of them was going anywhere. And the ring was in her hand, and was going to the shelf in her room, and the shelf was going to hold it until she was ready to decide what the holding meant, and the deciding was going to happen here, and here was where she was staying. And the kitchen was organized, and the accounts were on the desk, and the contracts were renegotiated, and the ring had come back by way of a coat pocket and a trading post, and $50 and a Tuesday in July. And all of it was here, and both of them were here, and the matter was settled, and the ring was hers, and the shelf was where it was going. And neither of them was going anywhere, and the November was outside, and both of them were staying, and the whole of it was correct, and the whole of it was here, and the matter was settled completely and finally. And both of them were staying, and the ring was on the table, and neither of them was going anywhere, and the South Callaway spread was theirs. And the November was outside, and both of them were staying, and the ring was going to the shelf in her room in November, and the shelf was going to hold it through December and January, and all the months that came after, and neither of them was going anywhere, and both of them were staying, and the matter was settled, and it held, and the ring was hers, and the spread was well and truly theirs now, and both of them were certainly staying. Chas.